So I'm going to hit record. So that sounds something like, hi, this is Dr. Grace Lee from careerrevisionist.com, and you are listening to Jeff Smith on Vroom Vroom Veer. Buckle up. Something something like that.
That sounds awesome.
Okay, well, you go ahead and take one whenever you're ready.
So you want me to say those lines?
You can say it. What I want you to do is just get those things in there. I want you to say Vroom Vroom Veer. I want you to say Jeff Smith, and I want you to say your URL. Everything else you can improvise.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm addressing your audience, right?
Yes, you are. Okay. Go ahead whenever you're ready.
Okay. Oh, it's so funny because I didn't see the record button, so I thought it wasn't recording yet.
Oh no, I'm not recording on the Zoom. I'm just recording on my recorder.
Oh, that is very trippy. That's very trippy.
Neat, huh?
All right. So take two.
Yeah, whenever. I'm ready.
Okay. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. This is Dr. Grace Lee from careerrevisionist.com. Jeff, it's so awesome to be on your podcast, Vroom Vroom Veer, and I'm excited for our conversation ahead.
I love it. That was probably a little too good, so I'll have to leave some of that blooper stuff around there.
Sure.
Just so you know. Just so you know. Okay, I'm going to hit stop, and I'll be right back.
Okay.
Are you ready to thoughtfully steer away from your revved up, frenzied, and far too often scripted life? Then welcome to Vroom Vroom Veer with Jeff Smith, where he guides you down the road differently traveled by sharing unique experiences with guests who have managed to shift away from a life stuck on cruise control and veered their way into a more authentic and fulfilling one in all sorts of interesting and kind of remarkable ways. Get ready to Vroom Vroom Veer with your differently traveled road chauffeur, Jeff Smith.
Dirk van Reenen, thank you so much for being on Vroom Vroom Veer, and welcome to the show. How's it going?
It's going great, Jeff. Excited to visit with you.
Cool. So talk a little bit about what you've got going on over there at your website, GoBundance.com.
Yeah, so in GoBundance right now, we just released a book called Tribe of Millionaires. And it's really a book that was written by the elders and founders of GoBundance. And really talking about how powerful the people are that are in our lives, that influences how powerful that is. So we just wrote this incredible book. It's already got 5-star reviews on Amazon, really becoming a fast seller. But we're giving it away on our website, tribeofmillionaires.com. It's tribeofmillionaires.com, or you can go to our home website, GoBundance.com. There's a link there as well. So we've been really excited to share this message and show how powerful the influence of people are in your life and changing lives by people becoming more aware of who they spend time with.
That's amazing. Good for you. Congratulations. Yeah. It sounds like it was a lot of work.
Yeah, it's been interesting. This is the first time that we've really kind of gone through a book launch, but we had some amazing mentors in the space that kind of helped us work through it. And it's been a lot of fun, and we're really proud of the book we wrote and getting that book out into the hands of a lot of people and transforming their lives.
All right. Well, good for you and congrats. You know, you got to take time to celebrate your wins. So way to go.
That's right. Yes. It's hard to do sometimes, though.
It is. You're right. You are correct. You know, what is it that, I don't know. We could have, that could be like a whole therapy session right there, what you just said. Okay. So this is Vroom Vroom Veer. So that means we have to go back in time and talk about Dirk van Reenen, like way back when, right? So where did you grow up?
I grew up in Bethlehem, South Africa. That's where I was born and raised.
Wow.
I lived there until I was 14 years old, and then my family immigrated to the United States.
Wow. Okay, so say the name of that place again. I heard Bethlehem, but that can't be right.
Yeah, there's actually a Bethlehem in South Africa as well.
Oh, really? Oh, that's amazing. Yeah. See, look at that. Learn something new that I never knew before. There's a Bethlehem in South Africa. All right. Wow. Okay. Yeah. So you said you born and raised in South Africa, Bethlehem. So, yeah. All right. So do you have, what are your memories like of of South Africa and growing up. So let's see, 14. So that's about like middle school age when you moved, or maybe the beginning of high school. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was 14 as I kind of went to being a freshman in high school here when we first got here. So,
okay.
So I got to kind of, my childhood was spent in South Africa, and, I've got such amazing fond memories of it.
Really? Okay, great.
An amazing country. And, unfortunately there's been a lot of things that have happened over the last 20 years that have really started, kind of declining what the country was once. But growing up was amazing. I mean, I spent a lot of time outside. Pretty much from the time that the sun came up till the time the sun went down, I was outside. Loved, just kind of being out in nature, playing, fishing, just being outside.
Yeah.
So I did a lot of traveling within South Africa and kind of some other countries within Africa. So that was a lot of fun. But in 96, my family made the move and left South Africa and came to the U.S.
So where did you land in the U.S.?
So I laugh because like people ask me all the time, like, how did you end up there? But we ended up in a place called Kroll, Texas. And
wow. Okay.
Yeah, Kroll, Texas. And it's one of these places that if you're not from there or somehow been to, it's just one of these places that nobody knows about.
Sure.
There's 1,200 people in the town when we moved there.
Wow. Oh my goodness. That is a small town. Yeah.
So I had a culture shock. In South Africa, I had about 280 kids in my class, and I come to now a new school where there's 126 kids in the entire school and only 20 in my class. Right? So it was a little bit of a culture shock, and this is a real agricultural type town, right? So everybody's either farming or ranching. Really different environment, right? So we ended up in Kroll, Texas, of all places. It's just one of these small Texas towns. And we still have so many great friends there. I was only there for 4 years while I was in high school, but we were really welcomed with open arms and accepted into the community. And it was really a great community that accepted us there and kind of helped, adjustment from moving across the world. So, but very, very, very small place.
Yeah, that's that. I mean, I grew up in small town Michigan. So I grew up in a place called Menominee, Michigan. Okay. And that's a Native American tribe's name. Okay. Menominee tribe. And I think when I was growing up, there was like 12,000 kids in the town. So sort of like rural, but not as rural as you.
Well, that's why I laugh. Like, because people say sometimes they're from small towns, and I'm like, no, I don't think you understand like what a really small town looks like.
Right. No, I'm familiar. Sure.
Really small town. Yeah.
Right. That's like the quintessential one stoplight kind of town, maybe.
Oh, dude, it is, and it wasn't even a stoplight. It was a blinking stoplight, right? So just a blinking. Yeah. One of those in the town. Yeah.
Did you have like a U.S. highway going through your town or not?
It was on the intersection of two smaller highways, but not at all interstate or.
Okay,
or
gotcha. Right.
Like
Right.
Just two-lane little highways that ran through there.
Okay.
So really, just really small, off the beaten path. Like if you didn't have a reason to go there, nobody goes there. It's kind of one of these towns that the only reason that really town expands is between, middle of this year, middle of November, usually till about middle of January when it's hunting season and people go deer hunting.
Right.
Then you start kind of seeing like a little bit of hustle and bustle. Outside of that, it's just like really slow paced small town.
I get it. Yes. The same.
In these small towns.
I'm from the same sort of culture there in Michigan. This time of year is really big. That hunting culture is actually in decline now. Like the younger kids aren't hunting as much in Michigan as their fathers did. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
So did you get into it? Were you a deer hunter? I didn't.
Yeah. I mean, I do enjoy hunting. I don't do as much of it now as what I did really growing up.
Okay.
But, I mean, it's a big part of, the culture and way of life there is, so actually I've done, even in the last couple of years, I've done more hunting back in South Africa than I have in the U.S.
Right. Okay. Wow.
Back, hunting there.
Nice. Okay, so let's talk about what your high school experience was like. I mean, did you feel like an outsider, or did you fit in pretty much right away?
Oh no, man! I stuck out like a sore thumb, like 100%.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
I went to this tiny town, and you don't have a lot of variation in the town, right? So it's kind of, there's not a lot of like continual outside new influences coming into a town like that, right? So, my family showed up, and I mean, I've got this crazy accent, and people half the time can't understand what I'm saying, and just like differences. I stuck out quite a bit, and then I think the other thing too is that it was just so small, and there wasn't anything to do.
Right. Yes.
I mean, where I live in South Africa, there was 100,000 people in the town at that point, so it wasn't a big town, but it wasn't exactly a small town.
Right.
I mean, there's a lot to do, and then all of a sudden you move to this town. I mean, there's really nothing to do. There's nowhere for kids to hang out.
Right.
So pretty much what you do, and I found this out pretty quick, is people go for a drag, right? It was what they used to call it. I don't know if they still call it that right now. Town, it's kind of like a big L shape where we drive just up and down the main streets, and that's all you do. And then you
yes.
stop at the courthouse, and people are hanging out and talking, or you go on a back road, and you go drink some beer and hit the back road or whatever it is, right? So that was all of high school. So for me, it was very different. And, because I tend to want to kind of move and accomplish something and move towards something. So for me, it just felt like, man, like you're always doing the same thing. There's no progression. So I was very ready to leave that town by the time that high school was done.
I can imagine.
In fact, I actually left town the day after graduation. I actually joined a custom harvesting crew, because obviously being in a farming community and my family, we didn't have any money after we immigrated. So I started working at 14, and I started doing farm and ranch work, right? So driving tractors, doing fencing or working with cattle or whatever it was, but very agricultural type work. So I learned how to operate, machinery and things like that in high school. And so I was 17 when I graduated, and I immediately joined a custom harvesting crew. And essentially what they do is they cut wheat and barley and things like that. So, and it's kind of traveling, following the season up in the United States. So I joined them. We immediately kind of left, and then we started going to other towns. And I was with them all summer up to the point where we're somewhere in Colorado by the time that college started, and drove back. And I mean, immediately went to school and never went back to that town again, right? Still have friends every once in a while. Still go back and still have friends there. But it was one of those things that for me, I wanted to get out into the world as fast as I could.
I had a similar experience. I spent I was about to stay in town and do 2 years of community college in town. I had enrolled and done everything. And then I went in and saw the Air Force recruiter, and I specifically went in to tell them that I wasn't going to join the Air Force. And he wasn't there, and his boss was. His supervisor was there because the guy that I had been talking to was sick, right? Uh-huh. And he convinced me that I really needed to get out of town. And I believed him, and I joined the Air Force, and I never looked back.
Well, you spent 20 years in the Air Force, right?
I did, yes.
Yeah. So that was a big pivotal moment.
It was a huge veer, right? Yes.
Yeah.
It was. So your first veer was you were just dying to get out of that agricultural small town.
That's it. Yeah. I mean, I moved to I went to college in a place called Canyon, Texas, which is right by Amarillo, Texas. So still a smaller market. Now you're talking about maybe 200,000 people.
Okay.
So
still
at least
nice.
That's
it's better than 1,200 people, right?
Yeah, it's like a 200% increase, right? So, or no, 2,000. Yeah. So anyway, a big increase. So I wanted to get out, right? So I went to school there, and ended up living there for quite a few years. And for me, I didn't particularly enjoy high school. I didn't actually particularly enjoy college either.
Okay.
Because again, for me, it's just I'm a very experiential type person, right? I want to experience, I want to exert effort, energy, and I always felt extremely confined, in those kind of environments. So I think in college, I tell people, look, college experience was great, but it wasn't because of what I learned in the classroom.
Right.
Outside the classroom, and I think for me, today, and I think, it's kind of interesting that I think, speaking about veering, right? I think a lot of kids today, and a lot of parents today are really kind of questioning that point in a young person's life is like, hey, should they go to college, or, should they kind of go on a different path? And we're really seeing a lot of conversation, especially in the entrepreneurial community, around that topic, right? That's your point. So for me, I kind of went down the traditional path, and I was a little disappointed because I really wanted to take a sabbatical after high school and
travel, or right?
Yeah, just travel and kind of get some more, real life experience.
Right.
And but I went to the traditional route and finished up everything, but never really felt like it was the right thing for me ultimately to do. Because again, like I couldn't wait to get done with that part of my life.
Okay. Right. It's like you're trying to like, you're thinking, okay, my life is on pause a little bit here. Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So for me, it kind of went from one thing from like being in the small town and want to get out of small town and go to college. I just want to get out of college and kind of get in the real world. So I actually used to work at a ski shop while I was going to school, and ended up managing the shop by the second year that I was there. And then I was able to actually purchase that business when I was 20.
Wow.
So that was
so
that was kind of like my first time that I got set free. I was like, okay, now I'm on the path. So that was kind of a big.
That's a big veer. That's a huge veer. Yeah. You're 20 years old and you buy a business. So is this just like a one kind of store kind of business?
It's a one store business. Yeah. One location.
Yeah.
The owner financed everything for me.
Wow.
I think he trusted me and saw the way that I was doing everything. So the business was really, really dated by the time that I bought it.
Right.
A lot of the inventory hadn't been updated for quite a few years, the shop itself. So I think he was just really ready to be done with it. He lived kind of a half the year, and I think it was kind of a good way for him to kind of move on from it. And for me, being a young person, it was like a really good way to kind of get in. So I think it kind of worked. Everything kind of worked out. And looking back, I would say that was one of the best decisions I ever made, and it was one of the worst decisions I ever made. And
I love that. Yes, I totally know what you mean. Okay, explain.
So it's just like I think I was so eager to jump into it, and I wasn't ready at all for it. But I jumped in, and I took ownership of it, and the first 4 years were pretty amazing. Because everything, we kind of started updating our inventory, started kind of making some changes in our layout in the shop and everything like that. And at that point, we had about 5,000 square foot of shop space. And, but it was in a real like Class C type location. And we heard that they were going to kind of tear this entire area down. It was a traditional mall with a couple of like freestanding buildings, and ours was one of the freestanding ones. And so they wouldn't renew leases or anything like that. And I wasn't smart enough to like really tune into that, because it had been so many years they wouldn't renew leases that people just kind of got numb to it and like, oh, okay, well, I'm just going to be month to month. So about 4 years into it, we're halfway through the winter season. This is kind of where we really start making money, and we get a notice that we have to be out in 30 days. Like they gave everybody who was left vacating notices. And
wow.
So we're in the middle of our season. For me,
this is the time then you make all your money, basically.
We're closed 6 months out of the year, open 6 months out of the year, but it's not until like December, January, February, March. I mean, really, those are like the 4 months that you really make all your money. Right?
Sure.
So in the middle of the season, I'm just kind of thinking, okay, hey, we gotta make the change as fast as possible. And initially, I try to kind of go to them and say, hey, just let me finish my season out. We can be out by the end of April.
Right.
And they said no. And I think for me, at this point, I was like 24 years old, and I think I didn't have the maturity just to say, okay, hey, logistically, it's probably going to take them longer to get done what they need to do. We should just sit and wait it out and finish our season.
Sure.
Instead of doing that, I now had a couple of years of experience, and I had a little bit of confidence and maybe a little bit of ego. So I went from like a C location to like an A+ location in town.
Ooh.
Added like another 2,000 square foot to our retail space, brought in all of these summer lines. And all the summer stuff that I brought in wasn't really based on market research. It was just more based on what I was into at the time, which was like wakeboarding and kite surfing and things like that.
Okay.
And I didn't really think about, the consequences of that. So we made these big moves, and financially, I'd almost paid the shop off by this point. Didn't have much debt, but then to make this move, we took on a massive amount of debt.
Right.
So we ended up taking on probably about $200,000 worth of debt in getting a new location, buying all the new summer lines, moving the shop, all that kind of stuff.
And your rent was probably a lot higher from going from C to A.
Oh, but yeah, my rent tripled. I mean, my overall overhead tripled.
Wow.
Yeah.
Holy cow. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So I mean, it's big move. Like this is like, hey, this is one of these like big leaps in business, right? And
yes.
So what happened is we go into our first summer, and it is just bone dry. Like it's just like nothing's really happening. And around the same time, there's actually a drought that starts happening in that part of the world, right? So it's kind of southwestern United States, and so a lot of the water and lakes and stuff like that slowly start drying up. Same thing going into the ski season. If you go through a drought, there's not a lot of snow in the mountains in the wintertime.
Right.
So the summer was terrible. The winter still was pretty good, right? So we kept afloat that first year. We had a good winter again, but it wasn't what we were expecting. And then we went back into the summertime, and it was just like death. I mean, it was just like, it just completely drained everything. Luckily, we held on to go into wintertime again. Winter, we caught kind of back up on everything. And then it was like by the end of that next winter, we had just kind of caught up on being even. And now we're going into this like summer season again. We don't have any money to turn to different types of equipment, right? Because I mean, if you have a specialty sporting shop like that, it's not the kind of cheaper stuff you're going to pick up like at an academy or something like that, right?
Right.
So,
right.
We're talking like specialty type stuff. So even if you just wanted to bring in like a line of bicycles or something like that, I mean, you're probably looking at $50,000 to $80,000 just to get 15, 20 bikes on the floor. Then you got to get all the accessories and this and this. So we had already kind of blown our budgets on something that I did not research very well.
Right. Okay.
So the story is we go into this third year of this bleeding in the summertime, and we started getting behind on our rent. I mean, like the business like started failing, right? Like all critical systems were just failing around the place. And I show up to work one day, and I'm there opening up the shop and everything, and my landlord shows up with a locksmith, and he locks me out of my own shop. And I'm 27 years old at this point and had the business that failed. And by the time it's all said and done, I mean, I was probably in debt about $300,000.
Ouch.
Didn't have a business anymore. Really had nothing to show for it. Because, when you look at that kind of inventory, it's not like owning real estate or certain types of equipment where it holds its value to be resale.
Uh-huh.
I'm
right.
not paying dollar type liquidations, right? So, at that point, my life took a really big veer, right?
I guess yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So, and during this time too is when, because all of this was happening like 2000, like towards the end of 2007, 2008, right? So,
right when the economy is about to tank.
Yeah, I mean the real estate market's tanking, the economy's tanking. So really kind of interesting time that. This point I was already married. I've been married for a couple of years, and I dated my wife for about 5 years before that. So we've been together for a while. And we just actually somehow, this is kind of back when you can fog a mirror and get a home loan. Like somehow we got a home loan. Right?
Yeah, I remember those days. I got one in 2003, so I'm familiar with the time.
Yeah, so we got a house, and about a week after we closed on our house, we found out my wife's pregnant. Right, and one thing that I've always known about her since we met was she said, "Hey, Dirk, I want to be a wife and a stay-at-home mom. I've got no ambition to go out and kill it in the workplace. That's not important to me. Money's not that important to me. If you're looking for somebody that those things are important to, it's not me." And I told her, I said, "Hey, that's not what I'm looking for in a spouse." I said, "There's other things that are really important to me, and so we're in alignment." So I made her a promise. I said, "Hey, because you're authentic in the way that you showed up, my promise to you is that I'll take care of you and honor that. to where once we have children, you don't have to go back to work, right?
Okay.
At any point, if you ever choose to. So this is kind of like, now we went from 2 incomes to having a failing business, and now she's pregnant, and we're about to have our first kid. So I mean, there's a lot of things that really kind of came together, like in a massive pressure point.
Right.
So immediately I immediately went back to work. I mean, that's the only thing that I've ever known to do is like work really hard. So I actually went back to work for an auctioneer.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is something like when I was going to college, I actually had 2 jobs, right? So I went to school in the morning from like 8 to 1. And then I worked for the auctioneer, like, from about 2 o'clock in the afternoon to about 5:30. And then, so I already had a great relationship with this auctioneer. And he had actually, throughout the years, I kind of helped him on different projects and stuff like that. So I called him up and I said, hey, here's what's going on. And he said, all right, so you can start immediately. So I went to work for him. And I remember starting off, I got paid $2,200 a month, right? And now I had all of this debt. And I mean, I wasn't even covering my interest on my debt with that kind of money, but I mean, that's all I had. So
right. Okay.
Working, and I worked with a lot of like support stuff and like real estate auctions, but never actually handled the real estate portion of it. So he said, hey, go get your real estate license, start handling the real estate part of it. And I said, okay. So I get my real estate license, and this is in 2008 now.
Right.
And
okay.
So like in the down market, but so we started kind of doing more real estate auctions around Amarillo, and then we started traveling, right? So as the foreclosure market hits up, like we're traveling, going to places like Georgia, and we actually came to your area. We were in Henderson. We sold real estate there.
Okay. So were you buying up the foreclosures? Was that what?
No, we just came in and we're either auctioning for banks or for private sellers.
Oh, okay. All right. Gotcha.
So because at this point, you had to have a unique approach to even selling your house, even before like maybe you're about to be foreclosed, or the market was just so competitive with people selling.
Gotcha. So you were doing the distressed sales maybe or something?
Yeah, I mean, some of it was distressed, but we also did a lot of non-distressed, and people were just looking for a different way of selling their house in that competitive market, right? So,
gotcha.
So we started doing more of this, and we're traveling more and more and more. And so then when my son was about to be born, I told him, I said, hey, I don't want to travel anymore. I want to be able to spend more time, in Amarillo. So they said, okay, why don't you just take over a local market and you run everything there? I said, okay, cool. So we were on, and they were doing their thing, kind of expanding on a national basis. And I was just back home, kind of taking care of the home hub and everything that was happening there. And then a lot of the expansion plans didn't quite go according, and they had made a lot of investment in expanding and hiring a lot of people and hiring a lot of family members as well. And when it didn't work out, like everybody came back to the home hub and essentially just started interjecting people everywhere. Started, what happened is it started limiting opportunity for me, right? So what I did is I actually went and talked to one of my real estate instructors that I got my license from. And now we're kind of into late 2009. And so he said, hey, why don't you start an auction division for us? And I said, I kind of thought about it. I said, okay, I'll do that. And so it was a Prudential franchise, and I started kind of built from scratch, launched a real estate auction division for them.
Okay.
And kind of started, just kind of building out with them, and started getting into traditional real estate as well.
Okay.
So yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
So we're kind of going along and ended up being very successful in what we're doing. And I also launched another traditional auction company at the same time, because we were auctioning real estate with Prudential. But then it's like, hey, what do we do about the rest of the stuff? If we sell an estate, what are we going to do with all the things that need to be sold? So I said, hey, I'll just start a little auction company on the side, and we'll kind of take care of that.
Like a liquidation kind of auction kind of thing?
Right. So like think of like an estate auction, or like, it's like an estate sale, except you're just auctioning instead of pricing. Okay.
Yeah, I get it.
We're doing this, and I mean, at this point, my son's born. I'm just working all the time.
Right.
I'm just like, I'm still in survival mode. Like one thing we pledged is that we would pay back every dime of money that we owed, right? With all the interest and everything. We said, we're going to honor that and pay back everybody that we borrowed money from.
Right.
So we were just on this path of like, Kristen's home with the kids. I'm just working as hard as I can.
Sure.
And
just to stay afloat, kind of.
Just to stay afloat, just to survive, man. I mean, it was grind. So I'm working, doing the real estate auctions. I'm doing the other auction stuff, and surely but slowly, everything like started like really growing. And but what happened is, as things grew, I started losing my time even more. And there's just a greater time demand and greater time demand. And then I started kind of hiring people, and I just it wasn't very successful. Right? And it was very different in this professional environment hiring people than it was, back when I had my ski shop. It was kind of very easy to hire back then. It's kind of like, hey, do I like you? Do you like snowboarding or skiing? Do you have customer service? I mean, it wasn't either, the qualification of like somebody that works in that environment is very different than now, handling high dollar real estate deals and, dealing with people's personal estates and stuff like that. So
right.
I kind of went through like starting to kind of hire, not really finding luck, and hiring and not finding luck. And I started kind of getting to a real stress point, because at this point, everything started growing really fast. And I mean, outwardly, there was even like started being some recognition of our top 20 under 40 talent professionals. And we got an award in the state of Texas for like the SBA Young Entrepreneur Champion. And like, so there's all these kind of cool things that were happening from the outside.
Right.
Looking in, it looked like I was being successful. And behind the scenes, I was just dying. Like I was struggling.
Exhausted. I was exhausted. Out. Yes.
Yeah. And I mean, up to this point, it's, Jackson's like 2 years old already. My relationship with my wife starting to fall apart. I was just never there. I was working 7 days a week, 12, 14, 16 hours a day. And I remember I got to this point where I started really feeling like I've been lied to. And the sense of what I was told my life growing up was like, Dirk, if you work hard and do the right thing, you're going to get ahead. Like, treat people right, do the right thing, work hard. And I felt like I've been doing that for a long time now, and I'm just not getting ahead. Like, I was like, I've been lied to. I'm missing a piece. Like, what is wrong here?
Sure.
And
wow. Yeah.
So I started kind of searching. This is about 2012, and I really started searching for, what is it that can change this? And I think it's one of these things that I was so frustrated. I mean, like we've been fighting like foreclosure on this house that we bought for several years now, behind the bills. There's just like crazy stuff. Like I drove a car one time for 3 months, and the car only had first and third gear. Like it was a little Chevy Blazer.
Yeah.
The transmission jack. I didn't even have reverse, so I couldn't park anywhere that I had to reverse the car.
Wow.
And I'm doing real estate deals, all this kind of stuff. It was crazy, man. But all of a sudden, like I started like realizing like, hey, there's a different way that successful people operate.
Okay. How did you find that? I mean, was it like in a moment or did you find a book or?
Well, I mean, one thing that I found is I did start like for the first time really started searching for personal development. So I like something clicked with like people live different, think different. And Tony Robbins was probably one of the first influences.
Yeah.
Right? I kind of watched some YouTube videos, and I bought this series from him called like The Ultimate Edge. I still remember it. And the reason I remember it is because I listened to every disc like 3 or 4 times every day for like 3 days in a row before I go to the next one. Like I just immersed myself in that.
Yeah.
And I got recruited to go work with Keller Williams Realty from Prudential the end of that year. And they've been trying to recruit me for several years, and I just kept saying no and no and no. But they were kind of interested in this auction thing I was doing and saying like, hey, we may have a bigger network for you to expand this auction thing. So I was really interested in that. But I joined, and then shortly after I joined, 2 weeks after I joined, this is the end of December, I went to a training in Austin, Texas called Recruit Select. And the training was all about how to truly understand the needs of your organization, how to hire the right people, like truly how to select the right people, how to train them, and how to lead them.
Okay,
and
nice.
For the first time in my life, I saw a path just unfolding in front of me. And this whole sense of like helplessness and not knowing how to move forward just immediately became clear. And I was like, I just got to learn how to hire the right people and really start leading them and helping them win.
Yeah. I think we all, I had a similar sort of struggle while I was active duty Air Force. It's like that story that you just said. It's like you've been sold on this thing. If you work hard, right, everything's going to be okay. If you're a good person, you work hard, you're gonna do okay. But the thing they leave out is this thing about like working through other people, right?
Right.
You can't really do all the work yourself.
No, you can't.
So at some point, right, you have to learn how to accomplish work through other people, right? And that's leadership, basically.
Yeah. So, I mean, I took this course and I immediately started changing because it's a turnkey approach to how to hire and train and lead.
Right.
So I immediately, I ended up taking the course 7 times in 2 years.
Wow. Yeah. I understand why too, because you just really like the community. I bet.
Well, I mean, for me, it's like it was the first time in my life that somebody gave me a very tangible way for me to accelerate my life.
Right. Okay.
And what happened was I took all of my time and effort and energy and like everything because I'm a naturally extremely driven person. But now I had kind of a channel for that. And so what happened is, I mean, at the time I was selling about 27 houses a year, and we're probably doing about 12 to 14 different auctions a year as well, right? So about once a month, some months more. But in 2 years, we were able to go from selling, 27 houses a year to selling about 120 houses a year, now doing like 30 to 40 auctions a year.
Right.
And started building a team, had my real estate team that now I was only working, Monday through Friday, usually about 8 to maybe 6. No more weekends, no more evenings, anything like that. And I was selling 120 houses a year.
So you got like a life back. Good.
I got my life back, right? And financially, we made a huge turn in those 2 years from being just completely strapped to actually now, kind of getting ahead a little bit. We bought a couple of investment properties. I was able to buy my wife a nicer vehicle, which is really important to me. We're able to go on some family trips now. Nothing extravagant, but I mean, it wasn't that like clutch, that just debt clutch that like financial stress puts on you anymore.
Right.
And so then, for the first time, my wife was open to leaving that area because the thing is, again, and the thing is, this is kind of maybe one of those tendencies is, again, I felt very constrained in Amarillo. Now, that environment wasn't big enough for me. Like I wanted a bigger environment, so I wanted to leave. And this is something that 6-7 years we kind of been trying to kind of get her to leave, and she didn't want to. Well, all of a sudden one day she just comes up to me and she says, "Hey, I'm open to leaving." And I was like, "Wow, are you serious?" So we have a conversation, and I just kind of put out a couple of feelers like, "Hey, if there's any opportunities out there, and I ended up having a lot of people reaching out. I think I had 9 different Keller Williams offices reaching out for like the brokerage CEO position.
Wow. Okay. Nice.
And so we evaluated these kind of opportunities, and we ended up moving to Houston. I ran an office in Pearland, Texas, which is right outside of Houston, and we moved to a town called Friendswood. And so we relocated the same year. I expanded my real estate team from Amarillo to Houston as well. So now we're operating in 2 cities with real estate and auctions. And I was able to do a good job here on growing the brokerage. There was probably about 185 agents when I took leadership. And I think by the following year, we were up to about 230 agents, and we'd increased productivity, profitability. We expanded the space. We had a new executive leadership team that I hired and built. And so there's a lot of good things that happened. And then I kind of got the knock of opportunity to move up to Maryland to run one of the top Keller Williams offices worldwide.
Wow. Okay.
And so
that's a big shift, though. That Maryland, that's a lot different than Texas.
It is, yeah. So, we spoke about it, and Kristen was, in support. And by this time, we had our daughter too. So, I mean, we've got our son and daughter, and 4 of us move up to Maryland. And really, so this is by 2016, and really, just an amazing growth year for me.
Okay.
And there was a lot of really big successes. There were a lot of like really hard lessons that I had to learn that year. But one thing that I really started understanding that year is that I had gotten really good at the process of building high performance teams. And that's kind of what opened the door for me to build my business so fast, to expand it, to really change everything, all the dynamics in the brokerage. So I really started understanding the dynamics of building a great team. And then, but what I didn't really understand at the deeper level is what a leader truly looks like. Right?
Okay.
What is leadership? Because I mean, my blueprint of leadership growing up is it's like, it's like very top down, very strong, I'll tell you what to do.
Right. The authoritarian directive kind of person.
Yes, exactly. Right. So that was my blueprint of leadership growing up. And what I started learning is that true leadership looks very, very different than that. But what I had to really kind of experience within myself is I need to do so much work within me to be able to lead others. And a big part of it is like, I wasn't willing to emotionally connect with anybody.
Right.
So it was always very transactional. Like leadership was very transactional for me. And what happened during that year is that I was broken down as a person. And what that allowed in that time of just like breaking down was for me to discover that, I have value as a human being.
Sure.
And
yes.
I can be in a deep relationship with other people, especially successful people. Because I think a big part of what I'd internalized was that I wasn't worthy to be in a relationship with successful people.
Right.
And that was a hard lesson for me to go through. And I think a lot of people carry that without knowing it.
I think you're right.
And then what happens is, an easy way to know is if you have judgment around successful people, right? If you see something highly successful or that has money or that's taken amazing trips and there's any kind of judgment around that, it's got nothing to do with them. It's got to do with your belief system around how do you value yourself against those people, right?
It's like a self-esteem almost issue, right?
That's it, right? There's a self-esteem, there's a judgment, there's ego involved in that.
Right. Maybe a little envy, jealousy, all kinds of, yes,
right,
yes. So, I don't want that because, I'm noble and right. And I don't need that kind of crap, I'm not, insert all the labels that you're going to label that person and you don't know 100%. Anything about that person.
That's right.
Right. Yes, you're right. Yeah. I've fallen into that trap myself. I think we all have. So I get it.
Yeah, so I went through a heavy year in that, right? So I had some amazing people, like my leadership coach, my productivity coach, my mentor, my direct leader in the business. I mean, I just had amazing people around me that really just coached me and mentored me and just loved me through all of that. Just amazing humans. And what happened is I came out on the other side. Probably as driven as I've ever been before, but now I had a completely new lens and approach at how I look at business and how I look at the human relations side of business. And really, after some time in Maryland, we decided we want to move back to Texas. And, for me, I was ready to really jump back into small business. At that point, being kind of again in a setting where there's a lot of kind of more corporate rules, regulations, things like that. I felt constricted, right?
Sure.
But I mean, the cool thing is that I went from the small town to a little bit bigger town, different industries and things like that. But I think that everything kind of came together with all the lessons that I needed to learn, with everything that I'd gone through. That I decided, hey, I'm going to start my own company to start training, consulting with other companies on how to build high performance teams and how to scale organizations, how to lead people effectively.
Right. Nice.
But there was so much purpose behind it now. It wasn't about transactions or, hey, how much money we're going to make. It was really about transforming people's lives, because I saw how businesses, when they start to grow and become successful, they take a heavy toll on the entrepreneur behind the business.
Yeah.
And emotional toll and physical toll and mental energy.
Well, you went through it, so the toll.
It was heavy stress, right? And I was just so fortunate that I had amazing people that, you just said, Dirk, don't give up, like go after it. Like, no matter what happens, like, people that encouraged me through it. And we want to do that for others, right? So we launched Workflow, and that's my primary business. We launched Workflow in 2017 in January. And essentially, I mean, we had nothing. I brought relocated my ops assistant with me. So it was her and I started this company, and fast forward a couple of years. I mean, it's been amazing. Like we took on GoBundance as an organization. We took them on as a client in January. And I mean, what an amazing way that now we took on an organization like GoBundance that's a mastermind group, a tribe essentially for millionaire entrepreneurs, right? So we have 230 members within GoBundance now that are all high-level business owners and entrepreneurs who work heavily with another organization called Inspector Empire Builder, where we have 170 companies as clients we work with on an ongoing basis.
Wow.
And so we've really been able to expand our world. We've built an incredible team. We just brought on today our 8th team member since we launched the company, and we've got 2 more that are starting in the next couple of weeks. So it's been this like really amazing journey of like hard lessons and things that we've worked on. But it's all kind of just brought me to a point of, because I've been in a couple of different business industries now, different businesses, run small businesses, big businesses. And it just brought me back to this place of like really having clarity around what a cool opportunity it is to be an entrepreneur today. Like how cool it is to be able to create and craft your own environment. And really, if you want to go after something, that you can absolutely do that. Like I tell people all the time, like I'll preface it with this: I don't watch the news, I don't watch TV. I'm very unplugged from the mainstream, and I have been for probably like 4 years now.
Sure.
Because my mindful energy and the way that I feel and the way that I think every day, for me, has to be very pure in me actually being able to go after and do the things that I want to do in my life and support the people that I'm building with. So
that makes sense.
I tell people all the time that, look, the greatest opportunity we've ever had to build wealth and be an entrepreneur is today. And I get sick and tired of people like just talking about like the good old days or how things used to be. Like today, if you can't go out and like really go after a business today, like it's not because you're not smart enough. It's not because the resources aren't there. It's just because you don't want it. And
you're right. That's true.
Yeah. I mean, you can go to YouTube and just about find anything that you want, right? You can go out. There's millions of mastermind groups and coaches and this. I mean, there's everything out there today. That no matter what you want, you can go after it. And
I think that's an important lesson in and of itself. Like I actually was trying to be an entrepreneur for a long time until I learned that lesson, what you just said, right? The only reason I didn't succeed was because I didn't want to. I just didn't know I didn't want to.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Do you know what I'm talking about? I didn't have that.
So we can fool ourselves. We can place the blame elsewhere, right? And
Right.
Ultimately, being a victim, right? If you're not succeeding, it's not. Same thing. Like back when my ski shop failed, I would say things like, "Well, we failed because there was a drought, or because the economy started tanking, because of this, because of this." And it wasn't until I took ownership and responsibility and say, "Look, the only reason my shop failed is from the decisions I made and from the actions I took or did not take."
Right.
Period.
Right.
That's why the shop failed.
Yes.
Because there's proof that there's other people that maintained their shops during the same time period. So it wasn't like everybody got wiped out, right? So if some people made it and some people didn't, like it's because of the
decisions, yes,
that we're taking, right?
Right. Yes.
It's not because of the environmental influences.
No.
So,
well, it's all the environment's the same for everybody. The only difference is
that's
you.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. No, I learned that lesson the hard way, but it took me like probably close to 10 years to learn that I just didn't want to. Does that make? Yeah. And that's okay. It's okay. Not everybody really has the required desire to do that, because it takes a huge amount of want. Like this, you're right. If you don't want to with every fiber of your being, you won't. That's that. So stop trying and just get a job. Get a really good job that you like, but don't keep, beating yourself up about something you are not. It's okay not to be.
Yeah, so here's something we tell people, right? Because we actually, we work with a lot of different companies today. And really our kind of core company is somebody's got probably like 10 to 60 or 70 team members. The business is somewhere around north of $1 million a year in revenue. So we work with a lot of these kind of people, and we talk about this because it's really important when you're growing an organization, you're really tuning to this. And that is that there's kind of 3 stages of like development or like growing or pushing, right? Like that drive, that push that you're talking about is hard. And one is that you have like the tip of the spear, right? It's like the leading edge of the axe. It's the point of contact that's out there. So if you're growing a business, it's that initial hit with the market. It's like the financial problems, the stress, like all of that kind of stuff at the tip of the spear. And that's where things are bloody, right? It's hard hitting, it's bloody, it's messy, it's mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually. I mean, it's just like all around, it's hard there.
Right.
But at the same time, that's where the greatest opportunities lie. So you got to understand that about the correlation in that space, right? The next part of it is kind of the process of early adoption, right? Where now you're starting to kind of build systems and processes and kind of trying to straighten out the chaos a little bit that's created by the leading edge.
Right.
And there's still pretty good opportunities there for people that can do this, kind of what we call normalization.
Okay.
And that's where you can go to work every day and you can kind of do something that is more normalized. Like you don't have the constant stress of having to innovate or change or figure out or optimize. Like you can go to work and kind of do a job every day.
Right.
But it's way easier on that side of it, but there's the smallest level of opportunities lay on that side as well. Right.
Makes
so
sense.
you kind of understand like what you want, you have to correlate it with like, hey, where am I in this process? Right? Am I willing to kind of be on that leading edge and like take the hits on a day-to-day in and out basis and like carry that weight and that stress and everything? Because it's not for everybody. Right. And the other thing is that there's no way that I could still be in this now. So I'm 38, but I mean, the way that I feel is that with everything I've gone through in my career, like I've encountered a lot more than a lot of people may have encountered, like even if they're in their 40s or 50s.
Right.
So I'm fortunate that a lot of these things, like these big failures came very early on in my career, that I've been able to learn from them and have this experience of like running, a business that does almost $1 billion a year in sales, right? I mean, like I've been fortunate in these kind of things, but one thing I realized is it's all about the people that you bring around you that can support you in whichever area you are. There's no way I can do the things that I do today without an amazing team,
right?
Backing me up.
Yes, and the opposite's true. So if you just get like, any old, right?
Yeah.
Right. Then it's like the opposite is true. So it's like a sure way to not succeed is to not figure out how to get an amazing team around you.
100%. I mean, and it's not just the people you work with, right? I mean, it's the people that are in your sphere of influence, your friends, your family.
Right.
I mean,
yes.
That kind of brings us full circle to kind of like the GoBundance conversation, right? I mean, earlier this year, we became CEO of GoBundance, and Vertical is really helping them kind of develop and scale as an organization. And when they started talking about this book, oh my gosh, like I was so excited about it because the essence of the book, Tribe of Millionaires, is really understanding that there's some core things that happen with the interaction that you have around people, and we're not really aware of it. But that starts really changing, how we show up and how we start shaping, right, the path of like, hey, where we veer. And there's things like the influences that the way that we think, the way that we're accountable, the way that we show up, the way that we just go through life is so heavily influenced by the people that are in our lives. And most of the time, there's not a high level of awareness around that. And I find with adults, like with their kids, they're really adamant about like, hey, they want to be aware of like who their kids are hanging out with and spending time with, especially, kind of in those junior high years or high school years where they're starting to really kind of independence. So a parent can be very aware of that, but then how aware is that parent about who they're spending their time with?
You're right. Yeah.
And they've got their friends and their coworkers and the family members, but like who is saying to them, hey, who are you spending time with? Like, are they influencing you on a continual basis to be your best, to show up, to be healthier, to be more fulfilled in your relationships, to be aware of how you're building wealth, how you're showing up in your level of contribution, right? Or do you have people as an adult that are like influencing you in that way today, or are you kind of hanging out with people that
by default, right?
By default, there may be people that complain about things or always talk about what's wrong. They never talk about what's right.
The people that happen to be at work in the building, or people that happen to be your coworkers, right?
So, that's it. I mean, the thing is, you spend more waking hours at work than you do at home, right? So you spend time at work for huge influence. So, I mean, if you can like really start helping people understand this concept, and this is exactly like the book Tribe Millionaires is written in a fable. So it's a really cool story, and like, most people can read the book in 4 to 5 hours. It's a quick read, but it's attention grabbing. And that's one of the things that I was so excited about with like GoBundance and getting this book out, is that that's a huge way of how people are starting to transform their life by like truly being more accountable to what they want, what's important to them. And those are those, I think, like, speaking about a veer, like those are things that are truly those pivot moments, those veering moments, is when you have somebody that stands in the gap for you and drives you towards your greatness when you're wanting to fight for your limitations, right? And in those moments is where it matters. Like that's where the change is. So if people can become more aware of those moments, like that's what's going to ultimately transform their lives.
Sounds amazing. So let's talk a little bit as we wrap up where people can best get in touch with Dirk van Reenen.
So I think probably the easiest way for somebody, they can either go to GoBundance.com.
Right.
It's just GoBundance.com. You can contact us through there. My personal company also is Bergflow, BERGFLOW. Go to bergflow.com.
Got it.
That's really the main way. Maybe look me up on Facebook and send me a message.
Got it.
I mean, we're, that's it.
Perfect. This has been a blast. We could do this again because we didn't get to talk about any of the adventures. I was actually wanting to do that more. I should have said that. But that's okay. Well, it was good. It was good. That's okay. We'll keep that for show B. Yeah.
Let's come back and dive into any of the stories we want to dive into.
All the adventures. That's what. Yes. Those are fun. But this was a blast. I appreciate you being open and hanging out with me for about an hour. That was a lot of fun. Thank you.
Very cool. Well, Jeff, I appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
All right. Take it easy. Have a good one.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks for taking the time to ride along with us on another episode of Vroom Vroom Veer. For podcast info and show notes, be sure to head over to vvveer.com. That's VVER.com. Man, that's fun to say. And we'll catch up with you next time here on Vroom Vroom Veer.